and it does get easier. And then they worry about the baby being dependent on them when they've got to go back to work. And there's that anxiety as well. And not having enough opportunity to have maternity leave or support. But really it's on tap. And so let's leave that debate behind about formula versus breast. But once you're on formula, okay, you know, when babies are breastfeeding, they suckle when they want to. They take what they need. You do not know what volume they're taking. Yet, when you formula feed, you're insistent that they take that specific amount. So you feed them regardless of whether they want it or not. And they'll take it. And some kids just don't know when to stop. And others will like reflux. And those are the ones that land up, funnily enough, be protected because they cannot take that volume more. But so many of them can, and they do.
They continue.
And so what happens, the excess calories start very early on. And with every excess calorie, those fat cells are growing. And so from day one, you set them up. And so I say to parents, please ignore the formula tins, because those formula tins are also designed to make more rather than less. And so your volumes are for the biggest size baby, not the smaller size baby. So I always say to parents, when they've had enough, don't give them more. Put the pacifier in. Let them burp. Let them, and then see, do they need more? So I try and give parents advice as to how best to formula feed, so that you don't give the excess calories. And there's no one formula that's better than another. They're all modified, and there's lots of ways of modifying them. But really they're much of a muchness, because at the base, predominantly it's still cow's milk. Yes, you've got soya, yes, you've got goat's milk, you've got but at the end of the day, their base is still there. So it's just really about volume. How much volume does your child actually need? And the little 2.5 kilo baby does not need the same as the 3.5, 4 kilo baby. So it's about trying to show parents that. And then realizing that they do need to feed regularly in the first few weeks as their gut is maturing, as they're growing, and their glucose regulation improves, and then they can sustain longer periods without feeding. And then we go into eating foods.
Definitely. So,
So let's go back.
That's very important. And also one more thing to add is that, like you said, there is also that bonding with the child to mother, and also the child is breastfeeding. There's some form of physical activities that are taking place as they suck. It's not easily coming.
Good
they have
point.
To suckle it, rather than formula, which they just pour it in and.
100%, because it's a more passive way of feeding. I love that. I've never thought about that, Ernest. I actually am going to utilize that, because they're active when they're breastfeeding, whereas they're passive when they're formula feeding.
Definitely. And also, of course, beside, that's a very good warning sign, formula versus breast milk. But what, of course, when you talk about the context of childhood obesity, we think of some contributing factors. What will be the contributing factor beside, of course, starting with formula versus breast milk? And what will be the role of genetics, environmental, and lifestyle? How do they play together towards contribute to this particular? Just briefly, we're going to unpack probably certain things later.
Okay, so we spoke about sort of breastfeeding versus bottle. Okay, and so the trajectories, and then of course what are the risks. So in actual fact, true genetic, because you were saying genetic syndromes, those don't really factor. Okay,
very insignificant.
They're not significant. Okay, so yes, there's Prader-Willi syndrome. Yes, there's some endocrine disorders where the weight does increase for the height, but in reality, it's related just to excessive calories. So certain people have a higher a higher genetic risk to develop type 2 diabetes, to develop those kind of things than others. Okay, but at the end of the day, I think we all are at risk, no matter our background. Okay, and it's our environment that switches on the genes. So small for gestational age babies are in fact at great risk for obesity because they've been deprived inside the womb.
Right.
So they come out and they've learned to take every single calorie and take it in and feed themselves with that, okay? Because they're programmed that way, because that placenta didn't give them what they needed. So that in order to survive, they took on everything. So then they come out of this environment where there's very little, and now they're given a lot. And so that their metabolism in their body and everything's structured to take up every calorie. What happens is then they do. And so these small for gestational age babies cruise through the growth charts. Go up, up, up,